It's 5 o'clock on Wednesday, June 19th, and I call this meeting to order the City of Merrill Historic Preservation Committee. I'd like to thank everybody for making the time to come in at 5 instead of 6. I've had a conflicting meeting again. Next item on the agenda is consider approving the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 17th meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the April 17th meeting. Any corrections, discussion? All right, if not, signify your approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. Under general item and agenda items for consideration, number 1, historic street name applications updated and continued discussion, and we'll cover that before we get into James Sievert. So after our last meeting, I made contact with everybody that had nominated someone, and everybody was elated that their person that they selected was chosen. The problem we have now run into is an absolute stonewall at a company we use called Rent-A-Flash. And I sent them merely a picture of the badge that Buddy English was issued as a alderman. You want to show them your badge?
I've been decommissioned.
Okay. And it took her, I think, a month to get back to me that they could use it. And I actually called down there and said, well, what's going on? He said, we're just so overrun right now. Give us a couple weeks to catch up. I have talked to everybody pretty much about what they wanted for designs. And Chuck Summers' family, they chose a location already, and they chose the design. I've talked to Robert Klug's family, and what they wanted, I'm just going to go back to my minutes. Come on. There we go. Robert Klug's family, they know where they want to go. Buddy English, they know where they want to go, what's on there. And then Robert Grueling as well. They want theirs on 6th Street by by Washington School. And then I don't recall where we're at with Ralph Fate of Vote. Wasn't that your?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so there's where we're at. I mean, put them together is actually pretty easy to do, especially the ones with families involved. They've all said, we'd like to see this and that on there. And now it's just a matter of letting Rent-A-Flash catch up with us. And then once literally the Sister Anastasia one, I sent them that and said, hey, we kind of screwed up. We need this right away. It was back in 3 days. So once they get moving, they can go.
My only comment is it'd be nice to spread them out a little bit with the ceremonies.
Absolutely. And I know some of them are already planning for September and that, so I think you'll see that. Any other discussion on the ones we have approved already? As far as the James Sievert application, I did talk to the family, and my issue is there's nothing we can hold firmly or point to in Merrill that says, Jim Sievert. Yep, right. I mean, that's the house he grew up in. That's the store he ran, and he is a town of Merrill resident. His grandpa's farm is in the town of Merrill. It does benefit the city of Merrill in many, many ways. They are very generous donors to nonprofits, and then obviously the city of Merrill is a brighter place to be because of things like Grandpa's Farm, and it's an attraction in the area. But my question is, and I said, where do you anticipate where we would put the sign? And they suggested out on Highway G or 14th Street, which was the path out to Grandpa's Farm. So I guess I could honestly vote either way on this. I'm seeing what the committee thinks. How wide do we want to open the door to things outside of Merrill?
Is there any organization or public space that he made a donation to or that exists because of his assistance where we could bring it closer in? Because moving outside the boundaries really does, it opens a can of worms for a lot of other things, including things like membership of the committee, right? And that can be fairly contentious. And there's a fair number of city residents, I think, who would say, it's City of Merrill. It's not something else. So question I would have is, can we identify a public space or a club or a group that he, or even, did he even attend one of the local churches where we could say, member of the congregation made donations to this, this entryway or whatever? Is there a way to bring it in?
I can make contact with the applicant and see if they narrowed it down since the last time we talked. Obviously, we did not meet in May as we had hoped to, and maybe get some update from her. But the idea was, if we did put the sign out there, it would be within the city limits, but it would be on the path to the township of Merrill, so.
Yeah.
Has there been any other applications like this where we made an exception or where it was close?
No, this is only our second year.
First
I believe.
order.
Yeah.
How does our criteria read? Does it read a Merrill resident? And was he in fact ever a Merrill resident?
I don't know if I could say that. Let's see here. Is that how I add a tab? I love these things. How do I get?
We have a lot of important people live outside the city limits. I think our city limits border would be filled with signs, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And as I say, in the past, we've looked at the composition of the committee and the focus of the committee, and it really is,
And the point being is, this is a new adventure, and we're going to have to feel our way along, and there's going to be other controversies, and we're going to have to draw a line somewhere. I don't know what it'd be, but
These are city street signs.
right.
I mean, it's not as if somebody from Pine River would come into the city all of a sudden and say, well, I want a street sign named after my family or something, just because.
understand, yeah.
Not that I think, there are a lot of good things about him and his family, but maybe the
No denying that.
county board should start county signs.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I mean,
I have to agree. I mean, I can think of several town chairmen over the years that have been great influences on their townships, and I've worked with them over the years, and they were wonderful assets, and they've now gone, and but we're not going to name them popular after
or
them.
maybe they were president of a bank, but lived out in the something that they had.
Nicholas family, maybe they ever lived in town. I don't know.
No,
They had a
they were in
farm.
Irma.
Yeah, so but no one's done more for Merrill than them.
Yeah. I can't find the exact wording. I'll do a Google, but it was something to the effect of, through their life's work or through their death, left a lasting influence in the city of Merrill.
But Nicklaus's have that tied to the city.
Yeah.
They have a bank sitting right up there, and
Or Bierman's, they
Yeah.
had
Right.
ties in.
Their
in
business was in the city.
City,
Right.
yeah.
Could we pass that information along to the county, see if they're interested?
I don't think they have a committee such as this.
Perhaps somebody else who's on.
Yes, anyone on the
county
county
board.
that might consider.
Just thinking about the county committees, there is nothing that is strictly speaking equivalent to what we've got here. And I suppose, when there is no other solution, it goes directly to the administrative and legislative committee. So it would sort of start at the top there if they were going to consider it at all.
Any value to this at all for the county?
That's an excellent question. I mean, as somebody who thinks history is valuable, I would say that probably there is. The question is that a minority opinion? Do they see it as something that's of value? Can't speak for other people. It doesn't hurt to make the suggestion. The worst they can say is,
Exactly.
we don't care, or we're not interested, or whatever.
Other than that, it's my feeling we're far enough along in the process, pretty difficult to deny it, and it certainly isn't going to hurt anyone or.
I Google search it, and a paraphrase in the Wausau Pilot was, honors those who left an indelible mark on the city through their lives.
Okay.
Well, whoever is, suggesting a name, don't they have to tell us how this was, such an important part of our city?
I believe they tied that into the, into Grandpa's Farm.
Well, they've been in the parade.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, okay.
They're at the fair.
So you put the sign at the start of the parade route or the end, right? One or the other?
I don't know.
I guess somebody wants to make a motion either way. And
Well, I have to be honest. While I feel great empathy, I also feel like there's a certain accuracy of representation that a committee like this is, in fact, expected to maintain. And I'm not entirely sure that it falls within the boundaries of even that definition, the indelible mark upon the city. Can you that from their own nomination? It's an odd and peculiar position to be in, because we want to encourage people at the same time. What's just, we have a Washington school. What's to stop somebody from Chicago saying we'd like a Richard J. Daley school in Merrill, right? Washington didn't live here either. We named something after him, but are we really going to name something after somebody from Chicago? And I realize that that's sort of extreme, but the extreme case kind of tests the rule all the time. And in some ways, this is a smaller version of the extreme case. Where are we going to draw the line? And what do we mean when we consider historical significance? The so what question.
Would you like me to go get that?
I'm actually looking for it. I might have right here, May,
Is that a hard copy?
April. James Siebert application. Aha. I found something on here.
Proving that we're all teachable.
He started Grandpa's Farm in 2010, which brings in thousands of visitors to Merrill each fall and teaches about the agricultural history while creating lasting family memories. Any other comments? The Red Shed concession stand donates 100% of profits to many charities in Merrill, the homeless shelter, MAPS, Snacks, Merrill Food Pantries, Chaos with Youth Group, Merrill Wrestling Scholarship, Never Forgotten Honor Flight.
Okay, so given that nomination, what about something around one of those charitable organizations like the Food Pantry, saying much of what is available here is due to the generous donations over the years from this person? There is something tangible right there.
Mm-hmm. But I think
Tend to agree.
of the ones they list, they probably have hundreds of donors every year, and some may give more than others.
True. But I'm not entirely sure saying that, it brings thousands of visitors into Merrill. I'm not sure that that's actually demonstrable. Whereas the gifts that he gave to various institutions in the city are very demonstrable. And I think that, somebody who does invest themselves into the community in that fashion has earned a place in the community and recognition. I'm just not sure that the recognition sort of...
But then do you have to have some kind of, they gave at least $5,000 over a period of 5 years.
And then you have to calculate in inflation over the years,
Yeah,
right? No, I'm
it
just
shouldn't be a
kidding.
bidding process.
Did I hear the family really doesn't have an idea, except for on the Highway G?
Well, when I
Is that
spoke to her on the phone, I said, where would be a place that we're not going to go out to town of Merrill? She says, well, what about Highway G? Because that's what carries, that was his route to town back and forth, and that's the route people from town take to go out to Grandpa's Farm, most likely.
Has anyone looked at it? Is that a possible location?
Well, we can put a sign anywhere we want.
Yeah,
We're the city of Merrill.
Is it a super visible location? Like, is it relatively, uncluttered by other structures and things?
I envision it out towards like Church Mutual, so it'll probably be on there, and when you're driving by at 45, you probably won't even see it.
Yeah.
Open there.
That's too bad. I was thinking that if it was very, very, very visible, even though it's a bit of a stretch, it's a great, sort of demonstration of the initiative to put these things up. But if it's not terribly visible, I guess that sort of argues for the other justification, which is,
You could do Highway G and Center Avenue, so on the corner there is around it, because that would be the, if you said, the Jim Siebert Trail, that's the trail leading home.
and it's sort of the trail that, it's sort of the trail that leads out of Merrill as
Yeah.
opposed to into Merrill, right? It's it's a two-way street.
Well, I think you should pursue that Highway G lane along there, along with the blessings of the family, and then, I don't know, and, follow through on it. I don't know if that needs to be a motion.
You'd have to make
But,
a motion, and I will,
I will make that a motion, that somewhere along Highway G with the consent of the family.
okay.
I will,
approving this one?
Oh, he has a motion.
Yeah,
I'll-
that's approval, yes.
I'll second your motion, and we can discuss it.
With the nuance that we may have to review our policy.
To do what?
I don't know.
Open it up to anybody in
I don't know.
the state? I mean,
Richard
Okay, so
J.
hold
Dana.
on. So what exactly is your motion? To approve the application for James Sievert on Highway G?
With the approval of the location.
Yeah,
of
with the
fa-
family,
families.
right. And let's leave it at that.
Okay.
and if they don't like it, too bad.
That was suggested by them, that would be, because I asked, where would we put it that would be relative to him? And that's what she came up with.
I know the family, so I kind of hate to vote against it, but really, I think just the fact that we're spending more time on this than we have spent on anything else
Isn't it
that I
great?
can remember, says something about it. At least could we say to them, this is something new that we've not, we were not considering something like this in our policy, and honestly, we need to spend a little more time discussing it.
So whatever way this vote goes, going forward for the next batch of applications, let's redefine the rules. Let's clarify the rules.
Well, but I think we should do that before we put up something that somebody can come along, and say, well, look at Mr. Siebert is here.
Right.
Well,
What-
but what's the, we don't have the policy, we can come up with it. But what if somebody comes and says, oh, I want to put one on here for my grandfather, and there's already one for somebody else? Is there a policy for that right now?
A lot of them, if you're on one of the wider poles, like the one over here that we never dedicated, Tiny Krieger, you probably put 4 of them on there if you wanted to.
So we are looking at doubling it up if there's some significance for that intersection for the applicants.
I mean, you look at the one that's for, down here at First and Scott, for Hans Kaltenborn, they're talking about next year doing one for the fire chief who died, Talbot, but we could put that at the other corner,
Mhm.
if approved. So I mean, there's a way around it, and you can always just put a pole and a sign on there. I think we had one of them that doesn't just put a pole up.
We do have a motion with no second, but.
I second your motion for
Okay.
discussion.
We do have- However, for next meeting's agenda, I believe we need to discuss, future applications.
Yeah.
And be more accurate if possible. I don't know the answers.
Well, as the chair said, to redefine the definition of our application.
Yes, let's all give it some thought, please, because I don't have the answers.
Well, I'm still struggling with this, and I know, yes, we have spent more time on it than almost anything else, but it's because I guess on the one hand, I've lived in places where these sorts of signs are virtually everywhere. I mean, the city of Boston is just loaded with them for all sorts of people that sometimes you've heard of, and sometimes the only way they are remembered is by those signs, by the existence of those signs. And in some ways, that's not such a bad thing. The sign itself generates a certain amount of historical inquiry. I still struggle with the concept of significance. I mean, significance always, in historical inquiry, answers the question, okay, this person did X, so what? Would the community have existed and been the same with or without this person? And it's a painful question in a lot of ways, because the sad truth of history is that the bulk of the human population lives a fairly routine, quotidian life, and there is only an answer to the question, so what, in the aggregate, that is, as a member of a larger group. The vast majority of us will go unremarked in history. And that's painful for people to recognize. There's a certain existential sadness in that. On the other hand, there also is a professional standard, which is, would things have been radically altered with or without this particular action? And I'm just not quite feeling like I'm convinced yet. I wish I would love to be better convinced. I just feel like I'm not quite there. I liked the food pantry thing, but as you say, what do you do now? You set a standard, a monetary standard, a number of years, lifetime donors or what? But it does call into question what it was we were intending to do when we created this process. Were we intending to generate inquiry or to recognize significant achievement? And depending on the answer to that question, my vote goes one way or the other.
I envision a significant achievement or, for instance, you look at the soldiers that we honored. They were 18-year-old kids. They didn't make any huge impact on how the city of Merrill ran, the government, the fortunes or misfortunes, but through their service to the country and their sacrifice.
Which is the aggregate. See, their significance lies in the aggregate, which is their membership in the armed forces and what the sum total of those units achieved. And so that's how they get brought into it, and it also generates a certain amount of inquiry. How is it that, we all understand Civil War, losses, and we understand World War I. How is it that we have two kids from, the 21st century? So it generates a certain amount of historical inquiry. And if that's one of our goals, okay, then this would work, because you could say, it gives people a name to look up and find out about. Who was this person? Why is this intersection named after him or her? And so it serves a kind of an educational, a hortative sort of function. Commerce in general, well, it's neither aggregate nor is it really unique. There can be somebody who ran a bank. There can be somebody who ran a mercantile store. There can be somebody who, that was their average everyday life, and those are the lives that most of us lead. But we can't have a sign for every single one of us. It's a problem.
It would be very difficult. I will suggest that, seeing as these are city limit signs, that one criteria I'm going to bring up for next meeting is say would have been a city limit resident. After, we're proving this, hopefully, or maybe, but...
You mean born and raised in Merrill, or somebody who moved in, or
live in the city limits? That's going to, we're not talking about that now, but for next meeting, I'm going to suggest possibly some firm criteria.
I wouldn't say born and raised here, but the majority of their lives were spent as residents of the city.
right? Because then you go to like Hans von Kaltenborn, and he's raised here, and then he leaves.
Well, we can discuss
Right.
We're all
next meeting. I'm saying we have to tighten up the criteria.
Yeah.
I know Fata Vogt spent the last year of his life in a nursing home in Tomahawk. He didn't live in Merrill.
Right.
Tomahawk.
We have a motion and a second on the
Yeah.
floor.
Could be withdrawn.
I will withdraw my second.
Anything can happen.
I'm going to withdraw my second.
I would really,
I'm waiting another second.
I would value a greater conversation about the person, and I'm willing always to reconsider,
Well-
but I just wish we knew more.
Another thing is we could have had 30 applicants. We're not going to do 30 signs.
Right.
Some people we have to leave behind.
Right.
The motion is on the floor to,
Motion's on the floor.
in waiting a second if anyone is interested. Hearing no second, last call.
Just like being back in the council.
The motion has died. I guess the position will remain in the budget. Okay, where were we? Number 2.
We're only on 2.
Update on virtual historic home building tour, and I will turn things over to the first man of the 3rd Ward to see what Nathan Meyer.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna steal Tom's for a second.
Absolutely.
Tom, I
It's the
guess.
city's
It
mic.
said anything all day.
So, at this current time, there is no update. But if Hallie and I can get information on which, and possibly contact information too, we could probably start working on this, I would say mid-July at this point, because we're gonna try working the next few weeks on some marketing stuff. So we're gonna be busy on top of our other scheduled things that we have going on.
I should be able to provide someone, and actually in some cases, multiple people, for you to sit down with. I guess I would like to hear from you where you want to do this. Is it comfortable here with the very white pasty walls, or is the library better? Is the Historical Society better?
There's plenty of different ways to go about it. I guess it would come down to it comes down to the, how do I put it, the artistic values, I guess, of the locations. If we're talking about certain buildings, then I would say that we should be at those buildings, whether outside them or inside them,
Well, these,
because
This
we're.
committee has established lists before of targeted structures.
Yeah, because if
I
we're
guess-
talking about the historic homes, I would say,
I'm looking at it's one thing talking about another. We're supposed to do interviews yet with the people from the signs we did last year. That all needs to be done.
oh, that's number 4.
And is number 4? Oh, boy, okay.
I was about to say, am I on the right agenda
James
item
Seaver has
here?
got me all messed.
So, so the historic homes and building tour, obviously at those,
Sherry had that information. I don't know where it went to.
I have the ones who targeted, I have that.
But I mean, the
That's
ones
good,
that
that's good.
responded and said,
I-
besides B, and said, yeah.
I would assume probably it's in Darren's office. I can, yeah, we can figure that out early next week. Tom, you and I sit down with Darren and find that list. So I go on vacation tomorrow, so
I've been thinking about this, and, okay, yes, we did agree that our house could be a part of that. And I think that's really nice. But it has occurred to me that honestly, if one of the reasons, or the main reason maybe, is to attract people to our community. Because, we're showing these edifices, whatever. I think there are a lot of people who like older structures. There are a lot of people who don't like older structures. Have we done any thinking about putting some really nice new places on the list? I mean, I don't think you have to eliminate the historic aspect, but what's going to attract some 26-year-old kid who just got a...
So that I can actually answer that. That's something that actually our marketing and communications committee is working on. We're working on a wide variety of different things to attract people. A lot of our stuff right now is actually targeting, I can say this because we've been working on this very publicly, on some of our outdoor activities that Merrill is very unique in offering just the everyday person. Like, you could go fishing right now after this meeting, and not a lot of people get to do that. They have to plan out a huge trip in order to do that. We have the Prairie and Wisconsin River. So those are, and that's just an example of one marketing video that we're doing. But that's kind of, but that's where I think this can play into that as well, and that's why we do see value in this.
It would all be on our YouTube channel, so if you go there and you say, yeah, I'm really interested in housing in Merrill, and look at this, they're showing all these great things there, and then, oh, look at this house, this is really, wow, they really like to preserve their past, and, it's modernizing this area. And their money is a lot more than our money because they get it from the cable franchise fee. And it's one of those they have to spend or they're going to lose it things. So they are moving ahead with that, and it's very impressive what they're doing. So I know they're running commercials over in the Minneapolis area. about
Yeah,
why Merrill's
we're
a
running it
destination.
along all the border of Wisconsin, basically all across it. So trying to attract people here, not just for coming and living here, but also for tourism as well. So,
The Parade of Homes does exist, run under the Wausau Builders Association. I see there are some signs up in some structures in Merrill. But that's mainly for builders, promoting new homes and.
So if a house has one of those signs, does that mean it's on a tour?
I
I
don't.
mean, I didn't
don't
understand. I
understand.
thought
I saw
they were
that sign too.
advertising the Wausau.
I think.
Which
they
signs would
very
that be?
well
The Parade of Homes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sign up with the Wausau Builders Association. Normally, it's the contractor gets permission from the homeowner to show off the contractor's skill and new innovations in homes.
No, but people's signs, it's just a sign in their yard telling you that it's the builder's show.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, so,
but-
that's a part of
so
it.
it's
But they get per-
advertising the show, not the, oh,
It's just advertising. is all.
ah,
What I think.
But-
I wondered about
But a
that.
builder could build a house in town and.
Right.
And be a part of that.
And we are way off, this is not.
Yes,
the agenda.
yep. All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's my fault, but I'm glad to hear you.
There are two other committees that are working on that aspect. Sum it up. Okay. We will look forward to that being on the next agenda, and we'll hear where you guys are at. Update on this, and this one Elizabeth's been waiting on, update on Normal Park and Legion Building signs and possible locations for signs.
Yeah. So on this one, remember we had an estimate back in October from Premier, and it took us until April before we got an okay to proceed on those signs, at which point our estimate had expired. I left a message with Tammy, and the message is, if the price is still relatively the same, we're actually going to go with two of them. Yep, and
Just got one for $1,800.
that's not substantially the same. That's $500 more, right? And so that's not such a good thing, if that was the response to the call. So,
This one may have some nuances that are special. But
so that's the question is, do we wish to still proceed given that cost?
It was 12, but now it's 8.
I would ask that once you get it back from her, get together with Emily Lay, our finance director, and make sure that that's still within our budget. And nobody in the committee has a problem with her going forward as long as we have the funds, correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
you've been blessed.
Is this for both signs?
Yes.
It's on the agenda, but pass around the proposal for the new one. It's not on the agenda. Larry.
Well, we'll look at this after the meeting. Anything else on those signs from you, or we're going forward? We're going forward. Update on videos for street signs, just what we just said before,
Okay.
completely off order.
Yeah.
Let me know when you want to do it.
Yeah, this is something that's easily, well, I wouldn't say easily. This is something that we can possibly get done. I would say, let's say like the August area.
Sure.
Try to not put too much on Draco and I.
And some of the people would visit back, and then maybe we can do it around the fair, although I don't know how soon that is for you, but maybe for others. But
I
we'll
was about to
see.
say, I think for a few of us that are sitting here at this table, that's a horrible, time frame to work on stuff.
Okay. Number 5, update and discussion on the Ascension Chapel demolition. I received information from a confidential source about 2 months ago that Aspirus is looking to knock over what is known as the historic chapel on their grounds in order to facilitate modernizing the hospital. I had the mayor reach out to someone that's in charge up at Aspirus Merrill, and they confirmed that is their plans. As we all received the letter from the mayor here, I know I personally spoke to one of the sisters today, and although they understand they really don't have much say in it, they aren't happy, and I'm not happy, and I hope you're not happy either.
That building is gorgeous.
Yeah, and my understanding is the last few years, they've kind of packed it with items for storage and shut it down and hope that people kind of forget that it's there, which they obviously have. What I would like to do, and I don't know if the mayor wants us or me or whoever making waves, is we as a city can do nothing to stop this. It's their place. They can apply for the demolition permit, which Darren pretty much has to grant. But I think I'd like to see a strongly worded letter on behalf of the committee saying, please stop destroying our historic buildings in Merrill. You have a lot of space up there. Why do you have to knock over the chapel? And for me, that chapel has a lot of meaning. You know, my family and my mother went to high school up there, and they spent a lot of time in that building. And, well, I was born there. So were you. Steve was under a cabbage plant, but.
I was born at that hospital. I'd like to remind this committee that we were re-energized after not meeting for a year or so. And the subject was the TV Scott Mansion, which is right across from the chapel. And again, this chapel is a hidden gem in Merrill. It's gorgeous. We discussed at the time if we could save the TV Scott Mansion, and we also learned some lessons, and we thought we had some power to designate structures as historically significant, which may inhibit process. We may want to consider that because no one else will.
The problem with that is you have to have the homeowner or the property owners
Yeah.
okay to designate that facility, and that's certainly not what they're going to do.
No, and this is private property.
Right.
Right.
This is private property.
How is it different from the mansion?
It's not.
It was-
And, well, actually, it's even more problematic than the mansion, because here you wouldn't necessarily be, even if you could declare it historic, you can't declare the entire structure that. You're just declaring a segment of the structure. And, you know, it begins to defy legal logic to try and do things like that. Really, the only option here is, you know, if they're willing to allow someone to disassemble it and you know, take as much of it out as possible and reassemble it someplace else. Because, yeah, it's a hidden gem, but the fact that it's hidden and on private property means it's not really accessible to the public anyway, any more than, say, your living room is, right? Nobody could declare your living room a historic site and say it must be preserved. It's your property. So we have even less ground to stand on, I think, than we did with the mansion.
And what if they're planning to take down that portion of the building and replace it with some really advanced cancer treatment
Right.
facility? I mean,
It'll be a positive, I'm sure.
Right, they are in the business of
Just that
providing
building
health
is
care.
so gorgeous.
I know it's gorgeous. I
They're in the
mean,
business of making
I
money. There's four
have
Well-
been
Well, there's
a
that.
number of times, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I have another comment again having to do with the TV Scott Mansion that we did consider, you know, moving it. Well, it was $2 million, and
Right.
where do you take it? But city does own a property now at O'Day and Center. That's but a block away.
I don't think you could physically.
So, you know,
more of a building like that.
So
No.
fuel wouldn't be
No.
a big consideration for the move.
About the most you could hope for is if there is interior decoration that is, you know, removable
And-
by a contractor, and how
Right.
much are you willing to spend on it? We were lucky with the mansion that somebody donated, you know, quite a bit of the labor, and then the hospital donated the cupola, but it's.
I realize it's not going to be practical, especially with a brick and stone structure, the movement that cracks everything, and it wouldn't make it. But we must at least discuss possibilities.
On the other hand, if you've ever visited the Cloisters Museum in New York, they took entire chapels from European countries and shipped them across
Sure.
and reassembled them in, you know.
London Bridge came to Arizona.
Yeah, so you know,
Piece by
it's,
piece, yeah.
it's not unheard of, it's just probably not feasible.
Do you honestly see the city
No.
designating a lot of money to do something
No.
like that?
Had
Nope.
to say it, I had to say it, I'm sorry.
We can't afford anything.
No, it would have to be volunteer labor, and of course, it requires the permission of the property owner, and they may not, given who and what they are, their insurance people would start saying liability, no way. So I'm not sure that we have
Okay.
anything that we can do about
You have
it.
no standing to do anything.
Right.
Well, then, my last comment is, we did manage to save a portion of the TP Scott Mansion. Is there anything there? I don't know. I don't know what's, you know. if there's any-
All you can do is ask them, is there anything they can give us?
Right,
That you can
and
do.
could we get inside and just thoroughly document the structure.
The University of Wisconsin came up and did a complete survey on the TV Scott before, a 3D survey to
Yeah.
preserve it for historical
Yeah,
purposes.
I
I don't
mean,
have
at
any
least
con,
if
do
you
you have any
have that.
contact with them? I didn't.
I mean,
At least if you have that, and if there are some, like, the Historical Society now has several lovely pieces
Mhm.
From the mansion, right.
And at least it's something tangible.
And so if they were, if we could make an inquiry
Yeah.
of the property owner, is there anything, first of all, would they let us come in and photograph, very thoroughly photograph? And secondly, is there any ornamentation or, interior structure that if we could easily remove, that they would be willing to donate to the city, and then the city perhaps donates it to the Historical Society? But that's about, I think, the most we can hope for.
Part of it for some sort of exterior monument. I don't know what that would be, but, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Tom, if I wrote a letter and of course got your approval. So, but.
I don't have any.
But I mean, if I circulated it via email to the other committee members and said, this is what I'd like to send, am I creating a quorum?
You're having a meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
You're having a meeting.
What have you circulated and said, this is what's going forward? Come back to Tom Hayden.
I think you should talk to the mayor about doing that. I mean,
Okay.
seriously, this is private property.
Well, I'm
I
aware,
think
yeah.
decisions are well along.
Oh, yeah. But we
And
still can say, gosh darn it, you should.
And I have no problem with the city doing that, but we just have to be very careful.
I'm saying.
I
is that this-
wouldn't like anyone to think that the authority, such as it is, of this committee or the city, we're trying to strong-arm somebody, because we have absolutely no leverage whatsoever.
But as a committee, we can say, our main focus and reason for being here is this.
Well, absolutely.
And we're disappointed in your decisions. We ask that you reconsider, and if you're not, well, could you at least do this, this, and this?
Yeah, and I don't know where and frankly, somebody's got to find out, and I have no idea where the process is. If this is all done, might be a done deal.
They might not even have thought about donating something.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, I'll help any way you want me to, you know that.
My understanding is they have not asked for demolition permit. I probably would have heard that by now, because or at least I would hope that our zoning and building inspector would have notified the mayor of that, and he has not notified me, so.
I honestly don't know if they're repurposing it or if they're.
Find out if they would meet possibly with members of this committee or the mayor or the alderman
Okay.
to go in there with them just to see if there's any possibilities.
So we're okay as a committee if I work with something with the mayor and write up a letter saying, okay, that
And I'd be happy to go with you, yes, I do, guys.
we don't make a quorum anymore. We can hang out all the time. All right.
That means you and I can.
I have one more meeting to go to, so I will go to next item, date and time of next meeting. According to our illustrious clerk, it'll be July 17th at 6 PM, and I'll open it for any public comment. I have this. Second call for public comment. Final last call for public comment. Excuse me, I think this is our longest meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Also move.
Second.
Motion made and seconded adjourn. All those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.